Hi everybody, today I have a new plugin for you and this is really some advanced stuff, but you asked for it, I made it. So now here is the Green Dynamic EQ Series 2. Before we start, let's hear some music. So that's just a guitar and drums. And I have this plugin set up for the guitar, so let's solo that. And hear the guitar. And yes, it has this typical Stratocaster pling. So that you know what I mean, let's boost that pling. And this should be somewhere around here. And we can make that narrower. Here we should hear that pling. Okay, I think you can hear the difference. Now, if we want to remove that pling, we could just drop this frequency band. But that would make the guitar sound a bit dull. So let's set that to 0 and let's get into the advanced stuff. So this D stands for the dynamic section. And here we have the dynamic section for this frequency band. On the top we see the level and we can set the threshold to catch the level for the band. And now we can set the range for the movement of the dynamic EQ. And let's set that somewhere around -10. And we can see that we now have here this green range displayed. And let's see what it does. So now it's jumping very fast. Maybe we want this to be slower released. And here we can adjust the sensitivity. So if this level crosses the threshold, how much will it move within the range? Of course, we can disable this dynamic section. And we can leave this window by just clicking outside it. If we want to enable or disable this dynamic functionality for the frequency band, we can hold Alt and click the D to turn that on and off. And if you forget that, well, it's in the info toggle dynamics, Alt click the D. And yes, of course, you could just use the bands as a normal equalizer if you like to. And all that is possible with the low shelf, the peak EQ 1, 2, 3, and the high shelf. Another new thing that this Green Dynamic EQ has that isn't featured in the orange EQ is that we now can solo the bands. And yes, of course, we have this MCP and TCP support where we can drag around bands and see what it's doing. Maybe together with the drums again. Now I've put a Green Dynamic EQ on the guitar and on the drums track, so I can show you some of the Series 2 functionality again. Yes, of course, the plugin windows are scalable. And if I hold Control on a Mac or the Windows key on Windows. The parameters are linked for all the visible instances, and they are linked relatively, as you can see. And yes, of course, we can make groups. So let's start group 1. And if we put this second plugin into group 1, it will synchronize. So the plugins will always do the same things. And maybe one more thing. Keep in mind that this functionality needs a lot of filters to run under the hood. And it needs a kind of compressor or dynamic detection thing running for every band. So the more bands you use and the more bands you use with a dynamic section, the heavier this plugin will be on your CPU. And that is why this filter decramping oversampling by default is switched off. Because switched on, it nearly takes double the CPU. But if you have a computer with a decent CPU and you're not using this plugin on every track, which by the way would be a bit strange if you're using a dynamic EQ on every track for something, you might be doing something wrong or you are a crazy sound designer. Well, nevertheless, you can enable all this oversampling, decramping thing and use all the filters at once, all with a dynamic section. But keep in mind, it costs a bit of CPU. So that's it for today. I hope you have fun with the plugins, and bye bye.